going for a natural lighting, and I'm sitting on the floor in my living room kind of look. I don't even know. Well, I need my glasses for my notes. Old school again, which I kind of like because it makes it really easy for me to keep track of where I am without having to look at another screen. Anyway, so is life coaching even real? That was the thumbnail title today, right? Hopefully it got your attention because we are going to talk about it. Let me give you a little format of how this video is going to go. First, I'm going to talk to you about transitioning from nursing into coaching. So that'll be like the first part of the video. Then the second half is really going to go into coaching a little bit and my opinions on it now, how I feel about my business kind of, and just some tips maybe for you if you're in the market for a coach versus a therapist. So we'll get into that a little bit, and I'll let you know my opinion on like life coaching overall. Even though I don't call myself a life coach. If I introduce myself and what I do, I call myself a career coach. All right, without further ado, let us go. So first we're going to talk about my transition and how did I even pick coaching, right? I went from teaching to nursing. Now we're on to coaching. So I want to say around 2019 is when this itch to change from nursing started. And I didn't know what I was going to do. When I became a nurse, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. There was a clear path. This one, not so much. So I was in a case management job, and I had been doing it I wound up doing that job about 2.5 years as a nurse. And I really just started, it became very boring. And I just didn't feel like I was utilizing my skills as a nurse. And I was becoming very jaded in the way I was thinking and not believing people and what they were saying about them, how they were feeling in their bodies, and not a good place to be as a nurse. You don't want to wind up there. So I knew something was up and I needed to kind of take a step back and look at things because that's not how I want to be as a nurse. So I really started going down the personal development path. I'd find podcasts or books that really spoke to me, and I was just all in. I couldn't get enough. I was thirsty and I just needed more. Okay. So then I kept seeing ads or Instagram reels or Facebook ads or whatever for life coaching from various institutions. And it caught my attention, and I watched some of those ads. They definitely got me. And I was like, okay, wait, this really sounds like something where I could use teaching skills, nursing skills, not nursing treating patients, obviously, but just the skills, some of the soft skills you use as a nurse, as far as being empathetic, communication, and just being able to really be a good listener to people and help them achieve goals. So I kind of was in this, routine of just reading, and I started journaling and all of these things. And then 2020 came. And we all know what happened in 2020. So we get into 2020 with the pandemic, and I think it was in February or March, I want to say March, that we went home to work. So my office that I worked in, I wasn't a case manager in a hospital. It was a small private company. We were able to go work from home. And when I did that, it was like breathing a breath of fresh air. Literally loved working from home. Not only did I have a lot of time with my kids, we enjoyed each other's company. We had a lot of fun during that time. Got to spend more time just outside, not driving around doing stuff, right? That was an eye-opener. And I had already started having these hunches of really wanting to work on my own, not have a boss. I had my setup in that job was very much, because it was a small company, red flags looking back at it, we're like a family, which sounds enticing, but sometimes that can bite you in the butt. And the main, like, there were two bosses, there were two owners, and the main one that I had to communicate with, which was another nurse, um, became very overbearing in my life. Like if I had a doctor's appointment, like a personal appointment, or had to take my daughter to an appointment. Oh, what's going on? What's wrong? Why are you going to the doctor? All these things, which none of your business. Like I just need to go to the doctor. There's, if I want to tell you, I'll tell you. Um, I remember one time coming back from a vacation and she was like, oh, that must, like, so how do you afford this? I'm like, excuse me, once again, none of your business. And just a weird question to ask your employee. Anyway, so I think there were some blurred lines there. So I definitely knew that I couldn't stay much longer in that job. And actually going home made it better. Going to work from home made that like probably last longer for me. Trying not to ramble on too much here, but during that time, I was really able to, we didn't, how can I explain this? We didn't work on like a 9 to 5 basis, even though we were kind of expected to be available during like normal business hours. But our pay was based on billable hours. So more like, I guess, like lawyers get paid, that kind of thing. So not just your straight time. So sometimes you would reach like billable hours, in the first half of your day that you're good, like for the whole day. As long as you were still present to respond to anybody that needed you. So I had some free time. And in that time, I journaled more. I actually started working with this, my first like coaching endeavor, I guess you could say, was this group program where it was a group of people who were seeking working from home or being able to have flexible work locations where they could travel, and figuring out how you were going to do that. What were you going to do? What service were you going to provide where you could be anywhere, do anything, and make money from it? With traditional nursing, like in a hospital, yes, there's travel nursing and whatnot, but it's like you have to report to your assignment, right, for your shifts. So it's not quite the flexibility that this group of people were going after, me included. So that kind of helped me really think through like what my strengths were, my skills were, and try to figure out what I was going to do. And from that came coaching. But also what I wound up seeking was I was like, what brings me joy? What can I do in this life that brings me joy? And so I narrowed it down to 3 things I called my 3 joys. So one was the beach. One was writing, and writing a children's book specifically. And the third thing was coaching and pursuing that. So what I wound up doing during that time was I started my first website, which was a huge learning curve. I'd never done anything like tech like that, and built it. It was called Beach Love and Life, and basically did a lot of beach blogs because I travel a lot to the beach, and kind of writing just, travel tips for beach trips and those kind of things. I love this website. I really was proud of it. Then I wrote a children's book, which was called The Lumpy Lumpy Snowman. You can get it on Amazon. The Lumpy Lumpy Snowman by Megan McCaffrey. I wrote it. I hired an illustrator to illustrate it. It was a really fun and satisfying process. I didn't make bank on it, but it made some money. By no means enough to live off of. Then the other thing was coaching. So in order to do that, I really wanted to go through a program and feel like I knew what I was doing and what was expected of a coach. We'll get more into those specifics later. Right now, I'm just going to kind of tell you the path I took. So I decided for sure in October of 2020 that I was going to leave where I was working, maybe November. So I actually went to the bosses and asked for a meeting to discuss continuing to work from home after they said, okay, in October, we're going back to the office. Many of us were kind of like, because it was such a small group, it was like, we are functioning fine from home. And everybody had gotten accustomed to it. Being back in the office, there was really not a huge amount of value in that work environment. We would come and go we had appointments, whatever. So I was turned down completely. There was no wiggle room. No. And you know, I don't want to get into the details here, but the reasons were really crappy reasons. I actually I had evidence of improved productivity. My billable hours went up. Was able to do more in less time. It didn't matter. We were going back to the office no matter what. And I will say we were able to work from home occasionally, but not like on a daily or weekly basis. It was just like, oh, this Friday I'm going to work from home after an appointment or something like that. So at least there was that, but it wasn't the same. So I told them when they shot me down, I said, okay, well, that gives me a lot to think about. And I think they knew at that point. They're like, does that mean you might be leaving us? And I was like, yeah. So I finally decided, I think it was around November, that I would be leaving, and I gave them notice that I would leave like before the Christmas holidays, like our last day of work before we took our Christmas break, and then I wouldn't be coming back. So at this point, I had also hired a private coach who was mainly a money coach, and I hired her because I had been following her for a long time. I trusted her. I knew that she knew her stuff, and I wanted to figure out, because I was leaving work and going to nothing. I was starting my own business, and I was hoping to get revenue off of the blog, the book, because my book didn't actually publish until 2021. And then, yeah, that's right, 2021. And then coaching. But the first step was going to be doing coaching certification. Like I said, we'll get into that later. So the program I chose was a 6-month program, and I think it started in March of 2021. So I was telling you, I hired a private coach mainly to get like my personal finances, business, like making sure that I was going to be able to pay the bills. And also it's a total mindset shift when you go from clocking in or someone else, you know, being accountable to someone else for your hours, to being on your own and relying on yourself to have income. So she helped me with that piece. She was wonderful. So in January, because I'd been working on my children's book all throughout 2020, in January of 2021, it was published. I did print on demand through Amazon, so it's not like I got a book deal with somebody or any of that. And then I also made my getting the website finally done a priority, and that went live. And so all those things were great. I made a little bit money, you know, monthly off of the book, not enough to pay all my bills. Zero money off of the website, the beach blog. My main motivation, and I should do another video on these things, I did the beach blog. It was kind of just a passion project also. I didn't expect to make, you know, tons of money off of it, but people always came to me asking me for tips on where to stay in the area that I always travel to, things to do. But sometimes people would be like, hey, can you like find me a place? And so I was like, okay, they tell you that a business idea can be like, what do people always come to you for? And that was something that people came to me for a lot. So I thought, okay, let me do this beach blog. And then when people ask me questions, I'll just send them to my website and they'll have their answers, you know? And then I was trying to figure out if I could find a way to be like, you know, find where they can live, like have a service for them of not where they can live, where they can go on vacation, like finding them a condo or a rental. Going on websites can be overwhelming to people, especially if they're not familiar with the area they're traveling to. Anyway, so coaching, I finished that up. It was like in October. During that time, we had a hurricane hit our area too that, you know, kept me out of my house for a couple of weeks. So I wound up doing, initially going for certification in life coaching. So that kind of wraps up that transition. Looking back, it probably would have been smarter to maybe stay with the company I was with a little bit longer while those things were starting to generate income. I am fine. Obviously, I am here today in my house. So now let me touch on how I got into career coaching. So we're not to like the juicy part yet, where I'm going to like get into life coaching a little bit. So career coaching, when I was doing life coaching, I was coaching women who typically were in midlife and wanting to make transitions or change and improve their lives. So almost every single woman that came to me, it had to do with their career. They wanted more. They didn't like what they were doing. How can they figure out what to do next? And I was like, oh, okay, I love this. I made my own career changes, and I was like, this is definitely something that really lights me up. Life coaching, you can do specific things, but it can be very, very broad in general. And I was trying to find my niche in coaching. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do career coaching. And as I like to be certified or get a degree or licensed or whatever I need in the area that I'm working in. So I found a program through the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches that offered a certified professional career coach program. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. Did that. It was all like self-paced course kind of thing. The testing at the end was very like I had to submit a lot of stuff towards the end. Also client work, proof that I had worked with people and what their outcomes were. And that was a great program because it also got into a little bit of resume writing, like reviews, learned a lot about like LinkedIn, job search strategies, interview techniques, negotiating, like all the things that come with careers, not just career change. So I felt like I could offer my clients like a really well-rounded product, so to speak, experience. So career coaching. So that's how I got into that. It was really like because the people that were coming to me really wanted that. I enjoyed it. I wanted to learn more about it. And I had also been through several career changes myself. So I thought, okay, I get it. I get where they're coming from. And I want to do all that I can and learn that all that I can to help them more. So we did the career coaching. Now, let me just say, when I was getting ready for this video, I need a sip of water. When I was getting ready for this video, doing I like to do a little research beforehand. I went down quite the rabbit hole on YouTube with life coaching. There are some crazy videos out there, pro and con. So I'm going to give you my, I guess, pros and cons on life coaching and is it even real? So first, let me answer that question. Yes, it is very much real. Just like anything else, there are good and there's good and there's bad in it. Okay. So my first thing I want to say is buyer beware. And so coaching is unregulated. It's not like if you're going to see a therapist, a counselor, those people are licensed and is regulated by the state in which they reside. So, but coaching, anybody can call themselves a coach. You can take a little course that'll say you're certified as a coach, or you can take something more extensive like I did that certifies you as a coach. My program was 6 months long. It was live groups, small groups, 10 of us at a time. And we had to practice coaching. We had to submit videos of us coaching. I felt like it was a very well-rounded program. I also feel that I know enough. I am a smart enough person to take away from it what I wanted to and to leave behind the things that I maybe didn't agree with. I think my nursing background also set me up well for knowing when someone comes to you for coaching that really needs therapy. Coaches cannot, do not, should not diagnose or treat any kind of mental health disorders. Coaches are great for asking the right questions to get to the answers that you are searching for, to give you accountability, to help you set goals and to go after those goals. But what I also want to remind you of is when you are working with a coach or a therapist, it kind of goes both ways. You get out of it what you put into it. So if you come to a coaching session and we, uncover what you want to do, we set goals, we set, okay, let's do this before we meet again, and you don't do those things, or you don't do the things necessary to do a career change, right? You're not going to get the results. So it is very much like the outcome still relies on the person, right? Just like if you wanted to get in shape and you hired a personal trainer, but you're only meeting with the personal trainer once a week, but they're telling you what to do the other days of the week. Now, if you're not doing those things the rest of the week, you're not going to see the results, right? They can't make your muscles get bigger or get leaner or whatever your goals are. They can't make that happen. You have to put in the work to make it happen. Same goes for coaching. Okay, so back to the unregulated portion a little bit. So you just have to keep in mind when you are searching for a coach that anyone can call themselves a coach. You really need to do your homework on that person. And there is a regulatory body called the International Coaching Federation. I am not a part of that. What I will say about that is it is still regulated in a sense, but it's still not a state regulated thing. Now, I think there are people who can be wonderful coaches who don't need any training. Just like you can have a therapist that's had all the training in the world and they can still suck. I tried one of those programs. It's a popular program online where you can get linked up with a therapist. And I had my first therapy session and it was the worst experience ever. And I was like, this person is not good at this. And it was very uncomfortable. We were on a Zoom call. We're supposed to be able to see each other. Her screen went black halfway through, which made me think, is there somebody else in the room with her? And therefore, at that point, I shut down. And I still talk to her, but I couldn't I didn't feel comfortable anymore. So I quickly ended that and did not do any more with them. So individual people can be good at things without certain, certifications being achieved, I guess is what I want to say about that. But the ICF, International Coaching Federation, a lot of times if you're searching for a coaching job, they use that as something they want you to have. But in the long run, it's I'm not taking anything if you're one of those coaches. They train a lot of hours. They have to prove that they've done enough, and there's different levels of the certification. But it's still not true regulation in the sense of how therapists are regulated. Regulated. So I think a lot of people will say, you'll hear some people say, oh, life coaches are scammers. And then you'll hear some people that have had the best experience in the world with coaches. And that's just how it is. It is that kind of a spectrum. There are definitely scammers out there, and there are definitely people out there that truly want what's best for their clients and are ethical and are doing things the right way. Coaches can also work alongside therapists. Some of the best experiences my clients have had is when they're doing the career coaching, but they're also doing therapy at the same time for the other issues in their lives, right? Because that's not what I'm there for. I will say I see clients who set goals beyond what was in their initial scope with the career change. Usually they get more out of it than they went into it for. So my video got interrupted and I thought I was recording for the last 10 minutes and I wasn't. So that's fun. I think one more thing that I haven't talked about yet is something to be aware of too, is when coaches will say something about being trauma-informed coaches. I think this became really popular a couple of years ago, and everybody wanted to be trauma informed, and that would like make them a better coach or more appealing to be hired. So it's one thing, yes, to have the knowledge of trauma so that you can recognize it and maybe see when someone needs more help with a therapist. But a trauma informed coach to me does not mean that they should be coaching you on your trauma. I was in a coaching group with other coaches this was maybe 2 years ago when this was definitely becoming like a trend. Like there was a guest coach one time who was the trauma coach. I can't remember what type of trauma she specialized in, but she, took like someone from the group who volunteered like to talk about their trauma and did some coaching that we watched. And it scared me, honestly, because I did not feel that she was speaking to this other person in the right way to handle her trauma. I just saw a lack of knowledge and depth to what she was doing. And I just want to caution you to that. And if there is some type of trauma there, to me, that's a sign, if that comes up in my coaching, that you need to be with someone else. Or like I said, I can work on you with your career while they work on you with the other things going on in your life. So that's just like part of my also like to be aware of. I think that's all for today. This is kind of wraps up my series of career change. And now I'll be able to make some videos about all the other things I want to talk about, more in midlife, right? This is more in what I think about is like more in midlife, more travel, more fun, more joy, more experiences, more confidence, more whatever. So many places that I can go with this that I want to talk about, that I want to share with you, and I want to encourage you to go after on your own journey. And so what I love doing is helping women, and also especially women in midlife, go after their goals, go after their dreams, to experience all there is in life now that we're at this stage, to know that it's, like there's still so much more left for us. And I want to do this in a way that's not just about your career. I think that I want to use this as that outlet for other things. And I guess at this point, it also makes me, like, okay, so where am I at in my career as a coach? I never loved calling myself a life coach. It kind of felt like made up, like fake. It's not. There are real coaches. There are really, really good coaches out there. I hope that if you've worked with me, you consider me to be a good coach. I think career coaching connects with me on a different level, and there's big companies that provide career coaching, and there are companies that provide career coaching for their employees. So there's, I don't know if I want to call it more legitimate, but in my head, it's more structured, I guess. I am open to other opportunities always, other possibilities in life. I definitely feel like I have the entrepreneurial spirit. I love being self-employed, and I am open to other businesses. So I don't know what that's going to look like for me right now, but I have this feeling that like things are shifting again for me. And it doesn't necessarily mean a big career change, but something's brewing. I just don't know what it is yet, but it's coming. And you'll see that along the way. So make sure to subscribe, like this video if you found it helpful. And, but subscribing helps so much, as it only helps me be able to reach more people. And so I would really appreciate that. And I will see you next week. I don't know what I'm talking about next week yet, but we're going to shift out of the career focus. Not that I won't talk about that. I'm sure it'll come up from time to time, but more about just more in midlife. So I will see you next week. Bye.